In what ways has 2020 pushed you into an inflection point?
Shit, man. I mean, for me, it's a combination of things. If I work backwards, honestly, because that's probably the best way for me to do it. You know about what I just been through with my shit, best friend, good friend, everything lives. It's like it's probably an inflection point starting within the past like 3, 4 days. Once my mind cleared of just all of that pain, hurt, all those other things, it was like, all right, bro, fuck is you doing with your life? Like, are you really, really, really living your personal legend? If you are, double, triple down on it. If you are not, start cutting shit and adding shit. So for me, it's like, honestly, I know I'm not. So it's like, all right, nigga, start cutting shit, start adding shit. Like, I gotta go with my Shawshank, my favorite quote, like get busy living or get busy dying. So that would probably say my probably most significant inflection point. And then working backwards, I would say inflection point entertainment. That would be, probably one of my second most significant inflection points, because it's like, okay, this is what I've always wanted to do relative to having a creative like part of my life where it also wasn't just some random art shit like that, where I was just more an appreciation of creativity, where it's like, okay, I get an opportunity to be creative,
To let people know
and for me it was
who,
like, okay, that's something that,
well, I was just jumping in and say to let people know who Biscuits from the
no,
Projects
go
is.
ahead.
He's more on the engineering, the mathematical, the science. Like, I know you see him right now. You see that art behind him, but art is, just to speak for you real quick, is always something that's been a part of you, building around your whole life. You got clothes on right now. If everybody can see, it's art's all over your body as well. And now
Right,
inflection point is an
that
opportunity for you to
shit.
put that exactly. Inflection point's opportunity for you to kind of build your receipts into the real world of your creativity.
Through my medium too, because like I would say visual art or music, culinary, like some of those art forms are not my medium. Like my medium is probably more, you know, just a different type of aesthetic, and it may not be a visual aesthetic. My medium's always been like the creative mind side, like
Right.
creating whatever it is. It's but the engineering, the technical, the professional, the business has always been kind of a ends to the means. Being a father young, it's like, all right, bro, go make some money. Like, you're not about to go work in the kitchen in France making sauces. Like, that's
Right.
just
As
not on the
much as you,
table.
right. As much as we love
Much as I
Action
would love
Bronson,
to do that.
as much as we love
Yeah,
Action
just
Bronson,
Bernays,
his
Hollandaise,
story
like,
as a chef that messed his leg up, like we don't have that.
yeah,
Everybody's got their own story.
yeah,
I love when
I
you said adding and subtracting. Like that seems like such a. I guess I obsess since I'm newly married. You are as well. But I
mhm.
feel like compromise is something I
Another
always.
inflection.
Right. It's a amen. I feel like compromise is like a huge, like just portion of so much of everything when it comes to coexisting with somebody, and adding and subtracting is a huge part of that. It seems like it's a big part of that. For me, going into 2021, one of my biggest thing is like I'm abstaining for certain things during the month of December, so
Hmm.
that, and I just the adding and subtracting is like almost like once God has cleared the way in my mind and of other things, like now it's time to step into who I want to be. But to be honest with you, as someone I'm 30 years old and I've gotten to experience a lot of things, I'm terrified of who I could be on the great scale. So I've low key been running away from greatness in my own way.
But that means you're pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, like that fear, that terror, that motivation to get away from how you feel. It means you're probably, in my opinion, doing something right. Like, it's uncomfortable is the opposite of comfortable, and comfortable to me, but for in certain personal elements, is not where I like to be, and I don't think it's the way you pull your best out. Like I tell people all the time, like, if you're the best, the smartest, the most accomplished, all these things in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Mm,
Like, go to the room
mm,
above you or adjacent to you where you're
true.
at the bottom, and make yourself uncomfortable, make yourself feel like I don't belong here, make yourself get that imposter syndrome, because that's the only way to elevate yourself, working from the bottom up. If you're at the top, and it is, the only place you can go from the top is down. So you
Man,
gotta, you got
man.
or find a new summit you aspire to get to, but you have to start from, base camp. So for me,
Yeah.
it's like those have been some inflections for me also. It's just like, okay, get to where you're comfortable, get to where, either you and or other folks think and or recognize you're at the top, and blow that shit up and go to the next point of where you're seemingly at the bottom. I graduated from West Point. I got a great job in engineering. I was making good money at 23, 24, 25. And I was like, yeah, but I've hit my summit here. It's like, there's so much more. And I was like, fuck this job. I quit. Let me go start this engineering firm where I was at the bottom. I was a young Black dude at 26 years old running an engineering firm at the in an industry that isn't diverse, in a city where I moved back after going away from 6 years in New Orleans, where it's highly relationships, political and all that. And I knew nobody. And I was like, okay, I'm about to claw my way up to the point where, a couple of years, and I say this humbly, but also proudly, like I made my way to the top of that, in most, if not every aspect, be it, professionally, be it politically, be it from my community, like in my community service. And I was like, okay, this is great. But if I can see something else, I can see another summit. I'm like, I want to get to that one.
Yeah.
Like if you can see it, sometimes you don't see it from the bottom because all you see is the summit that's in your line of sight. You
Right.
can't see what's behind this until you get a little closer. So for me, I was like, all right, fuck it. I'm 30, I was like 36, 37 at the time. I was like, blow this shit up. There's greater things than running this company, and there are things that you want to create a much more personally fulfilling legend,
Yeah.
versus a personal legend, So I mean, I said, like I said, I'm unapologetic. I felt like at that point before I left my company in New Orleans, I was a legend.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
I
was like,
mean,
all right.
rightfully so. But I guess on your journey to that, one of the things I'm so concerned with, I guess the experience that I had in my last work opportunity is reaching a summit that's supposed to be for you versus reaching a summit that seems to be what people in the industry, the rooms that you're in, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like even when I was working at Fox Sports, in the producer room and lower in the totem pole, just working in social media, I felt like I was I was a guy who played sports in a room full of guys who were sports almanacs, just like walking sports almanacs. And I was like, damn, like I don't even want to be here. Like I low-key want to be in like the late night room where like I am the sports guy and a bunch of fun in a room, bunch of funny motherfuckers, right? But when you're in those rooms, those people's summits become yours in a way. So how are you able to kind of assess? I guess maybe this inflection point of entertainment is you reaching yours versus, and you walking away was realizing you had reached the mountaintop of your surroundings and cohort.
You know what it was? And it was one of those things where it's like, I did not want my summit to be what other folks saw as their end or a summit, or one that they appreciated, aspired to be. And it's like, okay, I mean, I feel you. And, it's not just your peers professionally. A lot of times we come from very humble backgrounds. So it's like, okay, comparatively, and this is nothing, and it's typically for me, it's been professionally. Like personally, a lot of my people, my friends and families outpaced me very quickly, be it with their families, be it with their fatherhood, be it with their, fellowship, trying to get that alliteration. But it was, for certain areas professionally, business wise, I feel like there was a lot of folks that, really appreciated where I was and thought like, oh, if I could be that, I would do that for the rest of my life. And it's like, cool, but I can't buy into that because it's appreciated and it's aspirational to other folks. It's like, okay, but that's their life. This is yours. And I'm also not a comparative person, because there's some folks that were ahead of me be like, man, if I had that life, I would kill myself looking at mine. So it's like, it's all relative. So I'm like, I gotta base who and what I am off of that, not who and what someone else is or isn't. So at that point, it was like, okay, great. You could sit in, you could be comfortable in New Orleans, in a lovely house that you really loved, with surrounded by your friends and family, making great money, and literally on cruise control. Like, bro, no lie, I worked 4 hours a week. 4.
Just been pulling in money.
pulling in money, but also, up and downs, just, everything wasn't always,
And it wasn't
wild
4 hours at the beginning.
Yeah, no, it was,
Right.
70, 80 hours a week,
Right.
so I had earned it, but at the same time, I was like, okay, but you have the capacity
Mm.
from a time standpoint, from a capability standpoint, and from like a hunger standpoint to do more. So why take your foot off the gas, especially in your 30s? Like, why do that? I had a great professional and personal mentor, a guy named Doug Mouton, who I always, he was aspirational to me, older white guy, very different. We had military backgrounds, except he had a great career, and my military career fucking sucked because of me, but it was like one of those things where I saw him in the same way. He was the man in his own architecture firm. He walked away from that. Then he became the man at one of the largest engineering firms, Jacobs. He was top 25 in the company of like 50,000 people, and
Wow.
walked away from that to go to Microsoft. And it was just like, I was like, okay. And then, he afforded me an opportunity to have somewhat of an exit from essentially a professional space that I was trapped in. Being a
Mm.
business owner, it is your livelihood. You haven't been either an employee or a new entrepreneur for me in like 14, 15 years. And I had a business at the time when I left was about 85, 90 employees. A large portion of that, probably close to like 40% of them were my friends and family. That was always how I rolled. So it's like, ooh, I'm
Damn,
stuck.
I didn't know that. I knew everything. I
Ooh,
mean, I knew up until this point, but that's
yeah.
a huge part of it.
Yeah. So it was like, okay, I got to figure this out. But really at the end, what it was like, I watched certain people when it was their time and or their opportunity to move on from that space, they did so. And it was
Mm.
like, okay, well, it's not about a loyalty thing. It's about what works for you in your life. And I was like, cool. I did this. I really poured a lot into it. I afforded and opened doors for folks who now had their feet under them, who's like, okay, stand on your feet and I'm gonna go over here. And there were some sour grapes, man, really, when I left. And I'm like, if you could, you would. I can, so I should. And it was like, that was an inflection point when I walked away from my old company, in 2016. And then I went into corporate America. I, built data centers for, a handful of years. And I was like, oh, this ain't me either. What it was too? It was because I'd been an entrepreneur most of my life. Even I worked for like two people. And really, when I was like 23, 24, and I still did my own thing. So I was so used to doing my own thing, my own way. So when I went to Microsoft, I actually went honestly to prove to myself that I could do it,
That
that
you
I
could
could
be a
go into
company
corporate
man in
America.
that way. Yeah.
Well, no, I can't never be a company man,
Well, yeah,
but
yeah.
that I could exist and excel in corporate America and build not only physical structures but teams and cohorts and people that I really loved and they loved me back at a global scale. And it's
Mm.
funny because I was able to do that. I owned essentially a fourth of the world for building data centers. I had a quarter of the globe. There was four people that did what I did in our organization. And when I got to the point where I felt like, man, I got the best group. Again, I try to say it just factually. People think I'm arrogant, but it's like it's factual. So how arrogant is it for me to say something that's factual?
Right. That you got receipts for.
However, yeah. So I was like, at that point, I was like, damn, you don't really want to do this every day for the rest of your life. You've proved to yourself, because it was for me about proving to myself that I could do it. And then I was like, all right, well, time to go. An
How fast did
inflection
it take
point.
you to build that the best team? I guess I mean because I'm almost trying to get into your psyche of feeling yourself. You know what I'm saying? Because if
And
you
and
think
his and I'd say, like I said, I mean, it what took me. There was a transition when I got to Seattle. Like I got to Seattle after having the biggest community you could possibly have. Like I said, I worked day to day with my sisters, my nieces, my nephews, my best friends. Literally,
all
I
people you
would
put on,
say, and I'm not even put on. No, they had their own thing. Like I recognized talent, and it's like,
mm.
okay, if I have a professional opportunity and a employment opportunity to fill, I'm starting as close to home as I can.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If there is parity if you meet the needs, like I'm not gonna put you in a position, because that's how we've all failed, of something you can't do or you should not be doing. But if you
Right.
meet a need, let's roll. Like that's because it was that trust factor, and it was also the willingness. Like I tell people all the time, like I can teach ability. I cannot teach willingness. So if you got the willingness to roll with me, let's roll.
Right.
So, but because I had that large community, because I was living in the city that I grew up in, because I was damn near a couple blocks from where I grew up in, you know, in the 7th Ward my entire life. Like when I moved to Seattle, bro, it was tough for me because of my community. So it took me a little while to get my feet under me professionally because I was in a city where I knew no one, a city that is currently like, I think 3% Black.
Yeah.
You know, a city where it is as advertised, bro, and I deal with my own interpersonal, mental, and emotional issues. So going there where that place is gloomy
Oh,
and
I
getting
took,
there,
just tell you how weird I am. I took my bachelor party there and got a penthouse and top floor, just saw the thing, and
and
it
I
was
ain't see a
gloomy.
motherfucking thing.
Oh, but you know what? 21 Savage's I Am Over I Was came out, and I was just
Mm-hmm.
listening to that bitch like it was a soundtrack for the whole album.
Right.
And I went to Seahawks game. So I fell in love with the city, but it definitely is. I listen. Homeless people, I know they was homeless because they looked like they came straight out of REI. I was
Yeah.
like, y'all just lost your family or what's going on? Like,
And the funny thing was, like, man, I loved and still love that city. It was just certain things of what it did to me. Like, you know, I got there in November. So I was there for like the worst time and I
oh
was going
man.
through that transition. So it was more the perfect storm versus Seattle being the imperfect city. Because I got my feet under me about 5-6 months later. And I'm gonna answer the question because I want to answer it. But spring hit, you know, the sun came out. I was reconditioned to that work. You know, I got some good mental health support. And from that point on, I was like, fuck it, let's roll. So I would say for me, it took me probably, in my opinion, about give or take 15 months. But it was because the first 5 were, you know,
Right.
I
Getting
wasn't even
you right.
treading water. Yeah, I was, you know, drowning. I was up to my eyes in water. I just had to bounce up every now and then to get a breath of air. But once I got that, I felt like, you know, I built it in under a year. But also it was but I didn't build shit. Like I had a great team. All I did was try to put the pieces together and cover their asses to allow them to
Right.
do what they were skilled at doing. And these were people in Chicago, in Des Moines, in Virginia, in South America. I owned the entire South America, you know, continent. So it was like, man, they kicked ass. All I did was really be like, all right, man, I got you. Go do what you need to do. So,
Wow.
but to put that together, like I said, I'm big on culture. I'm huge on culture because if you can walk, you know, you've
Yeah.
been in cultures,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and they can diminish your capabilities, but they can also allow you to flourish. So,
Yeah.
you know, I feel like,
Environments.
yeah, it took me once, you know, I'll take the 5 months off the table where my capabilities were non-existent. I feel like it took me about a year,
Mm.
you know, and I'm proud of what I did there relative to building the team that I had, you know, the physical things we built. It was like for my group, like $2 billion of data centers. Again, huge, but like for me, it probably would have happened without me. It definitely would have happened without me. But
Right.
some of the things that I put together, I feel like only could have happened with me. So, you know, and again, Doug and I, so going back to what I said, you know, Doug afforded me that opportunity. I rolled with him. You know, I tried to be, for the first time in my life, also Robin. I was so used to being Batman. Like I went there to be like, man, I'm gonna be Robin, which was, you know, I wouldn't have done it for many, if not any other people. There's like 2 or 3 people in other spaces I would have done it with. There's like 1 or 2 people I'm gonna take the hill with, knowing we gonna perish at the top. So it was cool, but like I said, it was time to dip because all these factors. Like I thought I was gonna relieve some of the things that were weighing on me by stepping away from them, but they were so internal and interpersonal that also, on top of accomplishing what I thought was my goal, it kind of broke me a little bit too. You know, it
Mm.
really broke me, shattered me. So honestly, I had to take shit damn near like a 2 year sabbatical. Like between 2018, or like honestly, between February 2018 and February 2020, I didn't work. Did didn't have a job, couldn't do
Well,
anything professionally.
this is actually a good segue into my second question because I wanted to
Yeah, go
know
ahead.
what you do in 2019 that inadvertently prepared you for the pandemic and like what 2020 became by itself?
I
Inadvertently,
made enough.
like didn't even know, because like you said, you took, it sounds like it was a lot of personal growth time.
In 2019, what I did was I again like took a leap. You know, I was back in New Orleans from Seattle and not in New Orleans doing anything other than licking my wounds and putting myself back together. And I
Right.
got to the point where it's like, okay, I feel like I'm back together, but it's like, but you can't go backwards. So if I would have stayed there, I'd have been going backwards. So I was like, fuck it, I'm moving to Philly. I don't know nobody in Philly, but you know, Philly's cool. I like
Community.
Philly. Yeah, black people, bro. No offense to white people and or any
Of
other, but black
course.
people,
But there's
of
something
course.
about, there's something about us being around us.
It's a recharge. It's a feeling of, and then Philly, man, I love Philly because it at every level, you know, because there are levels in existence, but at every level of existence, there's a higher consciousness within the city. There's some higher fate. Like there will be niggas on the corner slinging dope, but they will have a kufi on and they will go, you know, pray, you
Man.
know, at sunset, sunrise, and they will
Yeah.
go to the mosque. And it's like
Morals.
that's a different level, yeah,
Yeah.
a moral compass. So I was like, I fuck with Philly. But 19, to answer your question, was the same thing. Like when I did get comfortable again internally, I knew that I probably only what I've done from that only what I would have done from that point was to get comfortable again environmentally. So I was like, man, move, get yourself uncomfortable, go in the city where you know no one, go in the city where, and I was, and personally, and also another inflection was my sons. I got two sons, Jonas and Jacob. You know, they're 20 and 16. Had lived in New York for like the past 5 years, so everything we did was very much so, you know, here and there when time was available. When I was in Seattle, you know, that's a 6 hour, you know, flight,
Right.
12-hour
Yeah.
round trip. You know, so moving to Philly was an inflection point for me as a father because it really put that relationship back where it always should have been, but for distance. Like, and some other growth on my part and having older sons who I could better, you know,
Relate
communicate
to.
with,
Yeah.
yeah, relate to, associate with. So being in Philly and being, you know, less than 2 hours away really opened the doors. Like, I'm coming to get y'all with no notice. Y'all want to roll down here, blah, you know, whatever. So that was another thing that, you know, 2019, it recharged me as a man to feel like, okay, I'm back to being the father that I'm supposed to be, that I can be, that I always will be. So it was like, all right, let's put the pieces back together and then see what you can do with them. So 19, you know, leaving New Orleans, getting closer to my kids, really getting on my health and wellness shit, like getting into the place where I sought, you know, psychiatric help. I really looked to say, okay, I have no problem for, you know, this point in my life taking medication. Also understanding I know it's not a silver bullet. So what I have to do is I have to put the other pieces together. So 19, you know, when 2018 was really like a recovery year, you know, 19 for me was like a, you know, a reinventing, rejuvenation, reemerging year, you know. So that's what I think set me up for you know, to 2020. And then there's also other aspects inadvertently that really set me up for, like you said, like the early part of 2020 is what we really dealt with more probably COVID from like, you know, the first 3 months, you know, around the first
Yeah.
3 months of the year.
Yeah.
I had been accustomed to being on my own, being in my house.
Mm.
Like this is my thing,
Homebody.
not being around. But yeah, so it was like, okay, cool. It gave me a decent foundation. But, you know, 19 always also set me up professionally to where I, although I had exited my company in 2018, it wasn't a complete exit relative to ownership. So 19, I started the process like, hey man, cut me the fucking check. Get me out of here. I don't want to look at these books no more. I don't want to study these numbers. I don't want to catch you, you know, with your hand in the cookie jar. Fuck it, I'm
Right.
out. So
Right.
that prepared me and put in that work in the latter part of 2019, put me in a position where the first part of 2020, check got cut. You know, I've had a blessed year. You know, it's given me a lot of perspective when I understand. I was talking about my partner the other day about it. It's like, man, there's people out here. 2020 is hurting them.
Yeah.
Like it gave me, you know, the ability to really understand like my blessings and then my responsibilities. Like that was part of what pushed me into Mike and I doing Inflection Point because like there's a representation that I'm somewhat like supposed to do for other folks because of a capability standpoint, and then some of it is an independent standpoint. Like, having the ability to be, and it's a struggle. And I think it probably segued into another thing I want to say from an inflection in 2020 and then hear the rest of your questions. But having the independence to go out there and fight a fight, to speak my mind, to represent, to do all those things, because it's a lot of times in the Black community, because we don't have financial independence,
right,
we can't exist with social and community independence and speak up and speak out on things, because
right.
it more than, well, disproportionately to any other race and probably nationality, it is a liability to us to speak up. It has always been
Definitely
held
can be.
against us.
Mm-hmm.
And then the
Especially
flip,
within their community.
yeah, and the flip side of it also, well, not the flip side, but the correlation that is like in the Black community, a lot of folks that would have in this, in previous generations been community leaders have transitioned as more professional opportunities opened up to being business leaders. And because of that perspective of you can't be both, a lot of times, you got to worry about your livelihood. And then disproportionately, we employ a higher, number of Black folks than our white counterparts. So it's like I told you, 30-40% of my company was my friends and family. They probably were all, if not a handful, of Black folks. So it's like I couldn't risk jeopardizing the company by taking this social stance because I was risking the livelihoods of these folks, not mine, because I was comfortable and I was financially stable. So, it was like 2020, breaking away, getting out of my company, having the ability to have true independence, put me in a position to even, unless, another inflection for me was to look at George Floyd, to look at, Black Lives Matter, to go back in a professional space and be like, man, I don't need this, but you need me, but I'm gonna do it my way because I have this independence, that if this don't work for you, I'm gonna go somewhere else and do it. I'm not reliant upon you. Also, you're not gonna mute me and or manipulate my speech and existence because of a financial need, because it's not a need. So that's the independence that, 2019 going to 2020 really freed me up to be myself. I feel like this is the most I've been myself, my true me at my core.
Yeah.
Probably in my adult life, because I was able to strip some of those burdens and responsibilities and requirements that made me kind of mute myself.
Yeah.
And I still was very vocal. And I can be a unique personality and persona. I do my thing. But I think also it's like I got more things I could and would be doing if it wasn't for having to mute myself. And it's like, nah, like honestly, bro, like this shit before I wouldn't do, having a fucking Instagram, like that's weird to me. But also it was like I probably wouldn't have did it before because it would have been potentially a liability to get out there and be myself, to post some shit that in a professional capacity people look like and be like, who's this dude? I mean, clearly, like I said, I've been covered in tattoos my entire professional career. I stopped wearing suits in 2010. This athleisure trend.
Long time
ago. I started that shit. I started athleisure.
Start.
I was wearing Nike dry fit track pants and top. I had a uniform, black with some colorful shoes. 2010, like, and again,
Jordan flight suits, Jordan track suits. Yeah.
I'm Nike, bro. Mike got Jordan locked.
Yeah.
I'm Nike. I'm OG. I'm Phil Knight. I might break out some Pegasus or some internationals. Like I'm old school Nike. So it was just one of those things. Like that's what 19 set me up for 2020, and I'm having what I consider, based upon my existence, a great year. Even with my my losses, I took some losses. Like I said, I lost my best friend, but it was great for me to have the independence to spend the last couple of weeks of his life with him.
Right.
It was a blessing for me to be there and have those conversations. It was a blessing for me to not only support his family, but to get the support back. That's my blood family. I don't care what nobody tells me. That's what it is. We got the same blood. That's what it is, because we are the same people. So, I mean, like I said, what a lot of folks looked at was, it hurts. But for me, it was, like I said, for all of the downside of that, I gained some upside, including the way we started, the perspective, the inflection, but also the blessing of like literally laying in the bed with my best friend and having these conversations about all kind of things that, but for just being, again, not having a day-to-day responsibility for as a father because my
Right.
kids are geographically different, having myself be an entrepreneur that where I can step away, having great partners like Mike and some of my other business partners who's like, hey man, take the ball and run with it. I'm going off the grid. Like it really, there were blessings in place that allowed me to mitigate and offset some of the pain.
Mm.
Same thing with Corona. It's been painful for me like everybody else.
Yeah.
But I have had some blessings in place that have at least offset or allowed me to feel a little bit interpersonally better, and then also
Yeah.
gave
Go
me
ahead.
that perspective. Like when I see that there's 3, 4, 5 hour food lines for people trying to feed their families, and I'm like, nigga, you bought a steak yesterday, like retail steak, like you went to
Right.
Del Frisco's, bro. Chill
Oxtail the
out.
day before.
Yeah, like chill out. Like
Yeah.
$85 on a piece of meat could feed folks forever. Not
Mm.
forever, but could feed them for a long time. So
Yeah.
and I'm still working through that because again, I gotta be honest. Going back to what I said before, it's still comparative. I still
True.
have to
True.
live my life based upon my blessings,
Yeah.
but not take them for granted, but also my work. And the same thing. No matter what I feel about that $85 steak, somebody else looks at it and be like, man, I'm eating Kobe right now. I feel guilty about eating this $400 steak, but an
Right.
$85 steak for me is how I cut back. And I'm like,
Right.
so it's
That's my
all relatives. I
McDonald's.
was like, yeah, balance out. So, shout out McDonald's, man. I love a number
Right.
one Big Mac with a
You know what I'm
10-piece
saying?
nugget on the side, sweet and sour sauce with a hot mustard and a Dr. Pepper.
Gotta
Shout
do
out
sweet
McDonald's.
sour. You said hot mustard.
Bruh, trust me. A dip of hot mustard with your nugget and then a heavier dip of sweet and sour.
Yes, with the coat and the coat. I mean, I'm always into the dip and the dip, but
But
I just be on some sweet and sweet barbecue to sweet and sour shit. So like, this is why
if you
that's why I
like
was
it, I
like,
don't know if you like
open
Asian
my
food.
mind up.
Like
Yeah.
I don't know if you like chicken
Yes.
wings or Asian,
Yes.
they get the hot mustard and they get the duck sauce. And if you got
Mhm.
like an egg roll, you might put both of them on there.
Never even played with the hot mustard. I just was always
Bruh,
ducking it up.
bruh, bruh.
Damn.
Look,
Okay, no,
we
we
gonna
got
talk
that.
food at
Hey,
different points.
a food podcast, something else
Yeah,
that we can
yeah,
just pop
yeah.
it. But
So
it
I know you said
was
you had 3
yeah, I did.
questions. I don't yeah.
I got one more, but I wanted to just to close out. It sounded like 2019 was kind of you building this foundation of independence in a weird way. And the foundations is a big point, but like it's funny that this independent version of yourself has blossomed in that year so much that 2020 wasn't a downtime for you. But at the same time, in that independence, because you come from such a community, you can't shake
Mm-hmm.
that comparative mindset, which is always kind of like where we're going to end up landing. It's like,
Right.
where am I in conjunction, in comparison, not only to my friends and family, but like to where the world is right now.
Right.
Yeah.
And it required, I mean, otherwise, if I didn't, so there's a benefit to it because otherwise I would be self-absorbed. I'd be
Mm-hmm.
like, man, that's on them. But this other flip side of it is, okay, don't be self-absorbed. Recognize other folks' predicaments and positions. Do what you can there, but at the same time, practice some self-love. If you
Right.
earned it, bro, it's yours.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you can help others and help them get to their points in life where they're living their personal life, it's great. But it's like if you earned it, man, look, and again, I'm sorry that it's been difficult on other folks. I've tried to do the best I can, but at the same time, I'm like, because of Corona, lost a great friend, Robert Jr., great friend of Corona, but seeing all the other things, the death and the diminishment and the destruction of it, I was like, okay, live your life, bro.
Yeah.
It's not, early in the year before Lyle passed, it was like, man, live your life. Like, so I'm like I said, I had the means to do certain things, and I was like, I bought a motorcycle. I was like, you want to see the road, you want to give out that, you want to live your life. You can't really do much, in community in conjunction with other folks. That's about probably one of the most solo things is getting on a
Oh man.
motorcycle and seeing the road. And
Mm-hmm.
that has helped me. I've been wanting this random ass Dodge Ram Charger 1988, some just throwback shit since I was like 22, 23. Bought one. Like,
Damn.
so it's the thing. It's like not being self-absorbed and considering other folks, but also practicing self-love and making sure you consider and prioritize yourself.
Yeah. And I
And
like you said
that
before too, like you can't teach will, you're talking about in a corporate and business standpoint, but like,
Right.
if you look at it, it's our individual decision to
Mm-hmm.
live, to like
Right.
want to live and put that into it. And there's some
Right.
days where like this, if it's a calendar week, Sunday to Saturday, I'm not wanting to live and wanting to fight through all of them days. It's just about trying to
Mm-hmm.
make the best of that Tuesday when I get on the uptick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And balance is found in time, bro. Like I tell
Yeah,
people all the time, the only way you find balance is over extended periods of time. Like there's no such thing as balance in a day. It's difficult. It's
true.
difficult because it's
Yeah.
not enough time. You have to stretch it out. And one of the things I learned was like, okay, maybe I could grind for 3 weeks and then take a step back for a week. That's still a
Mm,
balance, but it's hard to grind for 6 hours out the day because you lose some of your momentum, you lose some of your mental kind of focus and be like, all right, 2 o'clock, I'm stepping back, I'm going chill out. Like, nah. So I'm
nah,
like, for me, I've
project ain't
always been
done.
like, yeah, I've stretched it out over years, honestly,
Mm,
where it's like, I'm gonna grind this year and then come next January, I ain't working for 6 weeks. Like, I do balance over time. And sometimes
that's
you have to because you don't recognize the imbalance without time.
100%. And
So
I
that,
could spend 30 minutes on that, but that's a perfect segue to my last question. And it's gonna
well,
close you out because we gotta keep pushing. We got a busy calendar, we gotta keep it moving. As co-founder of Inflection Point Entertainment, what is one goal that you want the company to accomplish before December 2021?
oh, we got some stories that have to be told. So the goal that I have to accomplish and that I will is not about the stories, it's about the company. And it is to put the company from a structure standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, from a staff standpoint, in the position of where if we have a story, we will completely truncate to the most minimal amount of time to properly get the story told and to the masses. So my goal is not to tell those stories because that was the goal to start. And that's the overarching macro goal. So when you
Right.
ask me about 2021, which is a microcosm of the entire company time wise, my goal and my remit for 2021 is to take my business responsibility in this company and my business acumen and to put from a business structure standpoint, policies, procedures, protocols, whatever it is, so steadily in place, or whatever the word is, so in place and structure and foundation set that we can get these stories done right and timely because we want to have an impact on the lives of the people that we're telling the stories about, but also the people that deserve to hear those stories. And sometimes that impact needs to be timely because someone needs to hear it today
Right.
or someone needs to hear it as soon as possible. So if we're telling stories about wins and or losses, there's somebody out there that needs to hear it to, offset their loss or to motivate them to get their win. And it's like, we're looking to change lives. And one of the things is we're looking to, and it's not life or death, but it's quality probably to help
Yeah.
people save lives, so it's my goal,
Mm,
to answer your question very succinctly, is to, get this motherfucker popping from a business standpoint and let you and Mike and Will and all those other folks, myself included, then just plug into the variables of the company. We
yeah.
have this to go into this variable, we have this to go in this variable, and it is going to spit out this product, you know, to go with the algebraic kind of,
Right.
analogy. So that's my goal, is to create the business variable and then allow everyone else to just plug into, or create the business equation and
Mm,
allow everybody to just plug into variables with their own input. Like, I like to make things binary. I like to make the point to where it's people just have to do or not do,
yeah.
go or not go,
Yeah.
say yes or say no. Like that way, it's like you can be your best in the space, because the one thing I love about us, yourself, Mike, myself, is like we complement each other, but we don't necessarily overlap. So
Yeah.
I like to put in
True.
positions where it's like I can't do what you can do,
Right.
but I also want you to not have to worry about doing my shit or waiting for me to do my shit either. I want to make it binary. I want to be like,
Yeah.
Brandon, go,
Right.
Brandon, wait, and that's it. So
Yeah.
that's my goal, is to establish the just the most robust and the most um just business sound,
Sounds
business
like
tight.
community environment. Like that's what you're talking about building in this time
Yeah.
period. Like, because
And
if once that structure is built everything else, you know, once the house is built, everything else can just go in the house. It's all decoration from that point, and that's just the feel when other people walk in. But the house is built on foundation, on family, and like your business in New Orleans that you
and
so,
to free me up too, because building a business from a business structure standpoint is my priority. But the sooner I can get that done, the sooner it frees me up to then, you know, sneak over to the creative side, start doing some of these projects that I want to do, start allowing for myself to, you know, for lack of a better word, allow my personality to show, because the business personality is not who I am. It's just what I've done, you know. So my own individual personality, I have to do my business. I have to do my job. I have to balance it out, do my job for the beginning months, quarters, if not half, if not whole of the year. So on the back end, I can balance it out and do my passion. That's just it.
Yeah.
So 2021, we billing this motherfucker.
Yeah, I like that.
And then
billing it.
And then we flying it.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like this. It's like to go back to something else you said in this conversation, is just the concept of summits and reaching specific summits. And also, once you're at the summit, you get the vantage point of these other summits. You know what I mean? Like, as much as we love Inflection Point ENT, you said this ain't gonna you want to retire at some point from Inflection Point ENT. Like, I'm
going to Paris and make some sauces, and I'm opening my ballroom and sitting at the end with even if I got to save some newspapers, I'm gonna have a fucking hard print the New York Times. Shout out to Meredith, the new CEO, first female CEO, good friend of mine. But the New York Times will always have some paper edition. My goal is to sit at the end of my bar and read the paper in my spot. I wish a motherfucker would. It's just it ain't even gonna have no plaque. It's just gonna be a stool. You know, it's my spot. So yeah, I mean, I love Inflection, but I also want to get it to the point to where folks like yourself, folks like Will, folks like who will come into the company, then have the opportunity to take it and do what they want to do with it. More than what we've done together, and then allow me to kind of gradually, I like to work myself out of a job. I like to do everything I need to take to kind of step back. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I like to start a business. I hate running them. So yeah, this, and then also, I mean, we are all young. I'm 41, you're 30. It's like, will I do this for the remainder of my life? Will I do this for decades? I hope not. You know, but I hope I know the company will exist in perpetuity. But also, I want my role to be, you know, a little less, and just talking about summits. Like, I want to get to my summit, not Inflection Summit. I want to get to my summit and then look for my next summit, you know, because we're building, I think, does not have a summit. It is steadily climbing, because that's the only way that it really reflects and represents a world that is steadily changing. But yeah, you're right. For me, like, you know, I can't say how many years it is because I haven't created my own equation to plug these variables in. But at some point in the, hopefully, you know, not too distant future, like, I'm out, bro. My kid's gonna be older, you know, shit gonna be good for me, and I'm going to Paris and make sauces, and I'm going to New Orleans after that, even if it's part-time, you know, from a resident standpoint, and opening a bar room. You know, 12 seats at the bar, 2 fire-ass bartenders, and every day I'm gonna give away some free salty food to make motherfuckers buy more beer. And that's it.
You gotta get some beignets up in there.
I'm not salty enough, bro. I'm serving red beans with pickle meat, tips and tails. You know, I'm giving you a fried shrimp sandwich for free. Little sandwich. It's gonna be on toast, and ain't gonna be on French bread, but it's gonna be hot and it's gonna be salty.
Listen,
buy that beer.
Wherever you got it at, I'm gonna be there. You know, if it's in Paris or New Orleans. But I've been thinking about this time. For me, it's just
a ballroom in Paris would be fire.
Okay,
a hole in the wall.
I can't give you no ideas yet.
Old school with a jukebox and some goddamn Ronald Isley would be fire. Some maize.
But what this time period is, what I see it for a lot of people is, and if you don't think of it this way, then you may be asked out at the end of it. But this is time to sharpen your sword. You know what I mean? This is all sword sharpening time, because if you're put in a position, you think about all our brothers that are incarcerated and the time that they put into themselves during that time period and who they are when they walk out, it has a big, it means everything for the rest of their lives, who they decide that they are while in confinement, while isolated, left to their own devices. So that's where I'm at mentally. And it sounds like that's what led you, so that 2020 wasn't as terrible of a year. And actually, I think it's been a blessing for me, obviously, having a child, my first son, and I work so hard and I'm such a grinder that I just thought, I was like, well, at least that first year's a wash. I'm not going to be able to really be in his life. I just started a new job. I knew that job was demanding. Then Corona hit, and I've been with him the whole time. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, and
blessing.
It's been blessing and a blessing in a way. And also it's kind of it's removed some demigods in my life. I think I was obsessing about money a lot because I didn't have it for so long.
I don't know what a demigod is, bro. I ain't gonna lie.
Okay.
But we'll talk about it.
I like a false god, a false prophet, if you will.
I got
you know what I'm saying? Like obsessing over money and wealth and success in a way that I was like, oh, I'm doing this for my family. I'm doing this for my family. I'm doing this for everybody else. But I ain't checked in with my family. And then I didn't realize it until like I actually did check in with my family. It's like, oh, this is what's feeding me. Not the job, not the hamster wheel that I was on. Like, and that's why I'm glad.
Not these accoutrements.
Right. Exactly. Shout out to a fire Instagram name that would have been. Oh man, that should have been so fire. But yeah, that's where we are now. And I just I'm thankful for you, bro. I was you talking about your proximity. We got a chance to link up before I moved to Louisville and in South Orange, and it was talking on the phone is one thing, Zooms and things like that. When you get in the room with somebody and you feel the energy and you get a chance to hear their stories, and I don't know, that's just where the real brotherhood is, and that's what I think this is, and that's why I'm glad that we are where we're at now. So.
Well, I'm glad you're here. Honestly, like I said, there's a lot of energy that I pull from you. You know, I see a lot in you that I consider greatness, and it's not based on anyone else's greatness. And then I see a lot of potential, not to, you know, suck your dick and blow in your ass. Like,
appreciate you. We're gonna keep
doing
that
if you need to.
Yeah.
But it's real. Like I said, I mean, it's good because, you know, and I told Mike and I talked about it the other day, like, when you met Mike hit me, was like, hey man, I got a guy, like you gotta meet him, you know, he's a guy. And I'm like, oh nigga, you're overselling, I'm gonna be disappointed. And then honestly, bro, you remember that first conversation, like Mike had to jump like after 30 minutes, we went like 2 more hours.
Yep,
so like I appreciate your vibe, your energy, your passion. So it's like, for me, even though we are currently staff-wise a small business, like I'm like, we got some dogs though. We got some dogs. We scrapping. We got some dogs, you know.
And people gonna see the vision. I was talking to my dad. My dad's on some like, well, you know, are they gonna talk to you like, you know, about like actual partnership? And I was like, Dad, we brothers in this. Like, y'all, you gonna see what we talk. We got shit set up. We gonna be moving and shaking and stuff. And it's great that it's gonna be on these remote locations at this point in time, because once we link for real in person, it's gonna be hitting the ground running.
Yeah, and then that's part of, like I said, the business structure of where, you know, I want to get to the point that where we all really understand. And we've talked about, you know, I talked about it, like, this is not only my lane, but this is also like my runway. And it's like, okay, I see where I can go and what I can be, and how this organization, this is for all of us, it's not just for you, this is for all of us, like where this is going to take me. But the goal is, you know, again, to use a metaphor, is like the runway is only to help you take flight, you know? So it's like, that's where I'm at for you, for Mike, for Will, for myself. So I think, you know, I love where we are. I like where we are for our reflections. I look forward to flipping this and coming with my 3 questions for you.
I can't wait.
And getting that. And then, you know, I you know, I love the, you know, reflections on inflections. And it's just like, you know, that's one of our first very organic, you know, productions.
Yeah, absolutely. Programming, baby.
It's gonna be some scrappy shit, and we gonna learn, but also we got some fire, bro. We just waiting to put the foundation on there. Like, we got heat. Like, we got shit like tough.
We gonna feed the beast.
People don't even know, bro. And I'm excited about that. 2021. Shout out to everybody who deserves a shout out. You know, love all my niggas. Don't love any more women except my woman. So it's like, hey man, let's get it.
Hey, adding and subtracting, that's what we talk about, baby. It's for greatness purposes, man. I appreciate your time, brother. Have a good one. We're gonna link up later.
Believe that.